Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I want to share with you 200 things that you should declutter in 2020. And there are so many great decluttering ideas that I'm excited to share with you, but obviously 200 ideas is a lot to pack into one video. So instead, I'm going to be splitting it into two. In this video today, we're going to be covering the first 100 ideas for things that you can declutter from your life, and in the next video, we'll look at the other 100. And whether you're looking to declutter your life or become more minimalist, my hope is that these ideas motivate and inspire you on how you might be able to live with less. Before we get into this, if you're here for the first time, hi, my name is Ashlynne, and I make videos every week on this channel about simple and intentional living. So if you're looking for decluttering inspiration or minimalist lifestyle content, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. All right, well, I hope you're excited to dive into this. I know I am. Here are 200 things to declutter in 2020. Okay, let's start off by talking about the living room. Item number one is bulky media units. And not only do media units tend to be quite oversized and take up a lot of space, but they're also often what I like to call clutter catchers, meaning that they store a lot of clutter that we should perhaps focus on reducing. My challenge for you would be to declutter everything that's on it, and then maybe at that point you can reduce the size of or get rid of your media unit completely. Number two is word signs, and this is often one of the biggest sources of visual clutter in our home. They are often counterproductive to creating a visually clean and relaxing environment, so if you have word signs, I would at least reduce, if not get rid of them altogether. This can go a long ways to helping your space look clean and clutter-free. Number three is magazines, and if you have a large collection of Vogue or National Geographic magazines, or simply if you have a number of magazines that you've been waiting to read but have never gotten around to, I recommend recycling all of those magazines. And of course, the same thing goes for newspapers as well. Number four is old remotes, and often we'll hold on to remotes long after we've stopped using or perhaps even owning the electronics that they belong to. So if you have any old or unused remotes, you can just get rid of them. Number five is excess coasters, and I will often visit people's homes who have 8 or more coasters for only 2 people. What I would suggest is to keep 1 coaster for each person who lives in the house, plus maybe 2 extra for company. Keep in mind, if you're worried about damaging furniture, that things like napkins can always be used as coasters in a pinch. Okay, number 6 is threadbare or stained rugs, and rugs can often be not only functional but beautiful. However, if they're threadbare or stained, they aren't able to serve that incredible purpose for you, and it's best just to get rid of them. Number 7 is unused video games, and if there are any games that you've either played through or never fully plan on playing, you can either sell or donate these. Next, number 8 is DVDs, and if you have a large DVD collection, what I would do is go through each one you have and ask yourself, will I ever watch this again? If the answer is no, it's simply adding clutter. Number 9 is CDs, and with these you can digitize them. I did this several years ago with my CD collection, and now they're all housed on an external hard drive, and I have several of them downloaded to my phone as well. Number 10 is decor pieces with no meaning. And while I'm definitely a big proponent of decor that brings you joy or has a great memory associated with it, if you have decor pieces that were maybe bought at a box store that don't necessarily have any specific meaning attached to them, I would ask yourself, do I truly love this item? Does it spark joy for me? If it doesn't, I would consider decluttering it, because after all, isn't the entire purpose of decor to bring us joy? 11 is unused couches and chairs. Furniture is meant to serve a practical purpose, so if it isn't being used, I would consider selling it. Number 12 is TVs, and while a TV can be a great source of entertainment and enjoyment, having multiple TVs often serves as a distraction from our desire to live an intentional life. So if you have multiple TVs scattered throughout the house, try going down to just 1. Number 13 is unused board games. If you love and regularly use board games, that's fantastic. Keep them. But if you have any that you're probably never going to play, or maybe played once and haven't touched since, consider if it might be time to get rid of them. Along the same lines, number 14 is games with missing pieces. If a game is missing crucial pieces making it so that you can't play, it's probably time to let go of that game. And then number 15 is often housed in the same place as board games, but if you have puzzles that either you're never going to do again, you're never going to complete in the first place, or they're missing too many pieces for you to really get the satisfaction of completing a puzzle, you might want to get rid of those. Keep in mind the fact that you simply may not be a puzzle person. If you don't get enjoyment from completing puzzles, you might not want to hold on to any of them. 16 is knickknacks from travel, and I would ask yourself, does that Florida dolphin sculpture actually remind you of a memory? Or did you simply buy it because you felt like you had to come back with a souvenir while you were on vacation? If you don't love the souvenirs you have and they're just collecting dust, those might be great candidates for decluttering. Number 17 is old posters that aren't being used. I'd recommend taking a picture of each of those posters and then getting rid of the physical items. If they aren't hung up now, they probably never will be, and so there's no point keeping them around. Number 18 is to declutter dead plants. Of course, if it's just drooping a little and it's something that water can revive, by all means go ahead and nurse that plant back to life. But sometimes they're just a little bit too far gone. And if that's the case for any plants in your life, it's time to move on. I love this one. Number 19 is ugly plastic plants. If you have a hard time taking care of live plants or you just prefer plastic plants, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have any that are past their prime, shall we say, you might not need those. Number 20 is coffee tables or side tables that have no practical purpose. And having some kind of table in your living area can be helpful as a place to rest hot drinks or to put a book down when you're finished reading. But the problem comes when we end up having a coffee table and multiple side tables just because, when we're not necessarily using all of those. Number 21 is uncomfortable throw blankets, and I really enjoy using blankets to cuddle up in at night. They're cozy, they're warm, there's something very Huguette about them. But if you have uncomfortable throw blankets in your living room, chances are you are not going to be using those to snuggle up in. Given that's the case, I would just declutter any uncomfortable throw blankets you might have. Number 22 is burned out candles. And I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to hold on to candles thinking that I can get just 5 extra minutes of burn out of them, when realistically, they're definitely burned out. Yes, they might be beautiful, but if the candle has burned out, it ceases to be practical. And on a similar note, number 23 is candles that you don't like the smell of. Obviously, our relative enjoyment of scents is highly individual, and so if you have a perfectly good candle that you simply don't like the smell of, I'd consider giving it to a friend. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. 24 is a great one, and that is non-functional throw pillows. Throw pillows should ideally serve a purpose in providing us back or lumbar support. So if you have way more throw pillows than you actually need, or perhaps you use them for purely decorative purposes, I would consider whether or not they might simply be adding to the visual clutter in your home. Let's talk about books. Number 25 is books that you have read and do not plan on rereading. This one's pretty straightforward. If you don't plan on using it again, it's just adding clutter. Number 26 is books that you've never read and don't plan to read. And with this one, I ask you to be critical with yourself. Is there a book that maybe you've been putting off for a year, 3 or 5 or more years, saying, I'll get around to reading it someday? If it's been waiting that long, someday may never actually come, and so you might want to get rid of those books as well. Number 27 is bookshelves that aren't practical. Bookshelves are designed to store books, but oftentimes I'll see bookshelves that can hold maybe 10 books on them. So I would start off by getting rid of any bookshelves that aren't practical, but then once you've done that, ask yourself if you might be able to reduce the number of bookshelves that you have once you've gone through and decluttered some of those books that you're never planning on reading or rereading. Okay, let's move on now and talk about the bedroom. Number 28 is flat pillows. And old pillows that have gone flat and lost their poofiness are a recipe for back and neck pain. If you often feel a lot of pain when you first wake up in the morning, it might actually be your pillow that's the problem, and it's time to replace it. 29 is unused or bulky dressers, and not only do these pieces of furniture tend to take up a lot of space in our bedrooms, often they're not the most efficient way of storing our clothing. And if you have one of those big dressers, I would see if you can reduce the amount of clothing you have to the point where either you don't need it, or there might be a smaller and more compact solution that might work better for you in trying to store your clothing. Number 30 is vanities you don't use, and I feel like these often come in sets with those larger dressers. But if you have a vanity that you don't actively use, it's simply adding clutter and taking up valuable space. Number 31 is extra sheets, and I know several people who have 3+ pairs of sheets for every bed that they have in their home. In my opinion, you really don't need that many. What I would do is keep 1 pair of sheets for every bed that you have in the home, plus maybe an extra in case you're washing the laundry or anything like that. Number 32 is to declutter your alarm clock. If you use your alarm clock to tell when you need to get up every single day, that's fantastic. Keep it. But if you don't, consider whether or not you actually need it. I feel like so many of us have been guilty of this at one point or another, but number 33 is to declutter that accent chair that just collects clothing. If you have a chair that just tends to accumulate clothing, that can be a huge source of visual clutter, and it's best just to get rid of it. Okay, I have a few for those of you who have children. Number 34 is to get rid of outgrown or unused toys. The average kid today has way more toys than they actually need or realistically can play with. And so as you identify toys that either your child doesn't play with regularly or maybe they've outgrown, you can just put these aside and declutter them. And then the same goes for number 35, which is books that your children have either outgrown or don't particularly like. Rather than accumulating them and causing clutter, just go through them and declutter whatever ones they're no longer using. And then we'll lump number 36 and 37 together, and that is clothing and furniture that your children have outgrown. Especially in those first few years, kids are growing rapidly and they never seem to stay in clothing for longer than a couple of months. So just make sure that you develop a regular habit of going through and identifying is there any clothing, furniture, or just other general possessions related to your children that might no longer be relevant to them as they age. Number 38 is used up coloring books or art supplies, and a simple way about thinking about this one is that if it's used up, it isn't useful. Number 39 is artwork, and I know that children's artwork can be really meaningful to parents, but rather than keep every single drawing or painting your child does, my recommendation is to keep only the best of the best. You can display and even frame some of those items, but don't feel the need to hold on to all of it. Okay, let's move on now and talk about the kitchen. Numbers 40 and 41 are unused blenders and juicers. And if you regularly make juices or smoothies, by all means hold on to these items. But if you can't remember the last time you got out your juicer or got out your blender, they aren't actually helping you. And so I would either donate them or give them to someone who actually can use them. Number 42 is weird kitchen gadgets. And if you have a device that's meant specifically to take the heads off of strawberries or the pits off of avocados, consider whether or not you actually need those items. Often a simple knife does the trick just as well, and getting rid of these weird kitchen gadgets can really go a long way towards reducing clutter in this area. In the same vein, 43 is duplicate kitchen utensils. And if you have 2 potato mashers or 3 pairs of salad tongs, I would just go through the kitchen utensils you have and remove any duplicates that you don't need. Number 44 is excess fridge magnets. And if you have a lot of fridge magnets that aren't actually being used, what they're doing is creating visual clutter and making your kitchen look more messy than it actually might be. 45 is niche someday types of appliances. This might be a panini press, a waffle maker, an air fryer. There are certain kitchen appliances that aren't very versatile in the sense that there's really only 1 or 2 things that you can really use them for. If you have any such kitchen appliances that you aren't using regularly, ask yourself whether or not it's worth holding on to them. 46 is awkward sized pots and pans. Most of us tend to have a select number of pots and pans that we enjoy and use regularly. Those ones are easy keeps. But if you have any that are awkward sizes or that are just a little bit difficult to use, you probably aren't using them and thus don't actually need them. 47 is extra baking sheets, and if you've accumulated several of these over the years, keep only those that are the most practical and most used by you. 48 is cookbooks, and if you have some cookbooks that you use regularly and reference often, definitely keep those. But if you have any that are collecting dust or that you don't reach for regularly, donate them or give them to a friend. 49 is excess jars and containers. With this one, keep what you actually need and will use and get rid of the rest. And then number 50, we are halfway through, is extra vases. Consider how many of these you use regularly. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's multiple, maybe it's none. And then just keep the appropriate amount that's in relation to how much you actually use them. Number 51 is cheap or dull knives, and these are really just a pain to work with. So if you have any old cheap or dull knives, I would definitely get rid of these. And if needed, consider buying 1 high quality knife that you can use for years. Number 52 is too many or broken reusable bottles. I love reusable bottles and use my clean canteen all the time, but if you have multiples or perhaps you have old ones that are no longer working, they're broken, you don't need to hold on to more than you need. 53 is matches, and if you have matches that you don't use, you don't actually need them. 54 is cracked or broken dishes, and I'm not saying that if you get a small chip on a plate that you need to immediately declutter it, but if you have dishes with growing cracks or glassware of any kind that has chips in it, you'll definitely want to get rid of these. Number 55 is ice cube trays you don't use, and if you don't have an ice maker built into your fridge, then obviously these serve a practical purpose. But if you have an ice cube maker built into your fridge, most likely you're not actually using the ice cube trays that you own, and you can let go of them. 56 is single-use plastic straws, and not only can these be harmful to the environment, realistically, they're unnecessary. If you have them, I would use up what you currently have and then just refrain from repurchasing them. And then on the other side of the coin, number 57 is excess reusable straws. Keep the number that you realistically are going to use and get value from, but then don't hold on to any excess reusable straws just because they're sustainable. 58 is discolored or too many old mugs. Yes, many of them might be sentimental, but I would encourage you just to keep the best of the best. 59 is excess or mismatched cutlery. And with this one, I always think of that random fork that everyone owns that matches none of the rest of their cutlery that somebody left behind at their home one day and they've held onto for far too long. So if you have any mismatched cutlery, I would go ahead and donate those items. And the same thing goes for if you have too much cutlery as well. Number 60 is your china collection. And if you have one of these and don't regularly, or at least semi-regularly, use the china you own, it might be time either to donate it or to pass it along to someone who actually will use it. Next, number 61 is past their prime sponges. And if, like me, you have a tendency to hold on to dishwashing sponges far past their prime, use this video as your encouragement to replace that old sponge. Okay, number 62 is mismatched storage containers. Storage containers can be a great way of saving food so that you can then eat it later. But if you have lids that don't match the containers or vice versa, those items aren't actually useful to you, and so I would just declutter those items. Number 63 is take out food paraphernalia. So this might include chopsticks, little sauce packets, plastic cutlery. Throw out or recycle any takeout food paraphernalia you might have in your home. And number 64 is a very closely related one, and that is takeout menus. Nowadays, you can look up restaurants, view their menus, and order all online, which really makes these menus irrelevant. 65 is stained or worn out tea towels. If an item is worn out, it's important that we recognize that and learn to move on. 66 is placemats, and I have a simple question for you. Do you actually use your placemats? If you do, great, keep them. But if you don't, I would strongly consider decluttering your placemats. Okay, that covers the kitchen. Let's look at the pantry next. Number 67 is to declutter unused spices. Sometimes we'll hold on to these spices just in case, but chances are you're never actually going to need these spices. And if you don't like the flavor of them, why would you want to hold on to them anyways? 68 is expired foods, and this one is extremely straightforward. If something has gone bad, you're not going to eat it, and it's just adding clutter. Number 69 is foods that you've tried but don't like. And it can feel wasteful getting rid of food that we don't like. But if we don't enjoy something, we're not actually going to eat it most of the time, which means that what often happens is that we just wait for it to go bad and then get rid of it at that point. Instead of letting that happen, I would see if there's a friend or family member who likes that item that you might be able to give it to. Number 70 is condiments or sauces that you only used once. It can be easy to accumulate way more condiments than we actually need. I would keep the ones that you use regularly or at least semi-regularly. But if there's any that you bought for one specific dish and haven't used in months or years, I would get rid of those items. 71 is old candy, and although candy does tend to have a longer shelf life than other foods, after a while it does go stale, and at that point you're not going to enjoy eating it. 72 is freezer burned foods, and I don't know if you've ever tried eating freezer burned ice cream, but it isn't good. Don't let it sit in your freezer waiting for the magical day when you suddenly feel like eating freezer burned food. You're not going to enjoy it. It's kind of wrecked at this point, and it's time to just chalk it up as a loss. And then number 73 and 74 really go together, and that is excess or expired medication. After a while, medications tend to lose their potency, so if either you have too many of a specific type of medication, ones that you don't use or that don't really work well for you, or perhaps any that have expired and gone bad, I would get rid of those. Okay, we're getting to the end of this one. Let's move on now and talk about the bathroom. Number 75 is makeup that's the wrong shade. If you have tinted moisturizers or foundations that are too dark or too light for your skin tone, it isn't going to look natural. But likewise, if you have any eyeshadows, blushes, or bronzers that don't match your skin or your complexion in general, I wouldn't hold on to those either. Number 76 is expired makeup. There is no point in keeping gloopy or clumpy makeup that's gone past its expiration date. Number 77 is empty products. And I think when we get to that last little bit of makeup or skincare products, we tend to hold on to it because it's not technically empty. So my suggestion is to just use up the rest of that bottle, that last little bit, and then at that point, declutter the item. Number 78 is makeup brushes that are worn out. In the same way that you need to replace your toothbrush every once in a while because the bristles get frayed and no longer as effective at brushing your teeth, same thing goes for makeup brushes. If you have any that are frayed and that aren't working the way that they're designed to work anymore, you can declutter those items. 79 is any makeup items that you haven't worn in the past month. Makeup is great only so long as you're actually using the products that you have. All right, number 80 is expired or unused sunscreen. Once again, sunscreen, like many other items, loses its potency once it's expired. And when it comes to protecting our skin, we really don't want that to happen. So just double check those expiration dates on your sunscreen. Number 81 is skincare products that don't work for your skin type. If you try something thinking that it might work for you, but it happens not to, there's no point in keeping something that's going to break you out, make you oily, or otherwise just not work for your skin. Number 82 is exfoliators, scrubs, and serums. I'm a big believer in less is more when it comes to skincare. Find which products work for you and work well for you, but once you find something that you like, stick to it. 83 is broken bobby pins or hair ties, and this is pretty straightforward. If it's broken, it's unusable, and so you shouldn't necessarily have these lying around. 84 is duplicate or broken hair tools. And if you have multiple curling irons, maybe a blow dryer that doesn't work, or too many straighteners, figure out what you actually use and what you need, and you can keep those items and declutter the rest. Number 85 is hair products that don't work for your hair type. If you bought maybe a hairspray or a gel or a mousse, thinking that it would work for your hair, but in reality it didn't, don't let that item continue to cause clutter in your home. Number 86 is gloopy or dried up nail polish. Trust me on this one, holding on to old nail polish is far more effort than it's actually worth. 87 is funky nail polish colors, and if you have any lime greens or bright blues, chances are you're probably never going to use those. If there are a few nail polish shades that you like and use regularly, stick to those, but don't hold on to too many of those adventurous nail polish colors. Number 88 is soaps or moisturizers that you don't like the scent of. These are most likely collecting dust somewhere in your bathroom cabinet, and so rather than letting them continue to stay there and act as clutter in your bathroom, I'd recommend passing them on to someone who can actually use and enjoy them. Number 89 is travel size toiletries or samples. Many of us hold on to far more of these than we realistically can ever use, no matter how much we travel. Figure out if there are any of those items that you're actually going to use when traveling, but then for the rest, either use them up or get rid of them. Number 90 is old toothbrushes, and I love the piece of advice someone gave me once, and it's that you only need 2 toothbrushes. One for your teeth and one for cleaning. Number 91 is old air fresheners, and after a while the scent in air fresheners tends to go a little bit funky, at which point it's no longer actually going to be freshening your air, and it's more of a distraction and a hindrance than anything else. Number 92 is a shower caddy. Especially if you tend to bathe in a tub or a shower with built-in ledges, consider the fact that if you reduce the number of products you use when you shower, you might not actually need to keep your shower caddy. Number 93 is threadbare towels. And towels are a purely practical item. Once they become threadbare, they're no longer able to be effectively used for the purpose that they were designed for. Consider donating them to your local animal shelter, as they're often on the lookout for items like blankets, towels, and old sheets that they can use for the animals. Along the same lines, number 94 is excess towels and washcloths. A great ratio that I found to work well personally is to have 1 towel and washcloth for each family member and possible guest in the house. So for example, my husband Christopher and I live in our house and we can accommodate up to 4 guests, and so we have 6 towels in our home. Number 95 is duplicate brushes or combs, and if you're looking to cut down on clutter in the bathroom, getting rid of any duplicates you have can be a great place to start. Number 96 is old tweezers and trimmers. Once tweezers become dull, it gets really painful to actually remove the hair that you're attempting to remove. And if that's something you're running into, I would either try sharpening the tweezers that you have or replacing them. Number 97 is old perfume. Perfume is designed to smell good, but if your perfume has lost its scent or if that smell has gone a little bit funny, it's probably time to get rid of it. And then number 98 is perfume or cologne scents that either don't match your body's chemistry or simply that you don't like the smell of. At the end of the day, perfume is a luxury and it really isn't necessary. So if you're going to be wearing perfume, it had better be one that you enjoy and like. Okay, just 2 more left here. Number 99 is body mists or body sprays. Although the initial scent of body mists can often be pleasant, my issue with them is that it tends to wear off after 15, maybe 30 minutes, but it doesn't last. And finally, number 100 is unused bathroom cleaning supplies. And maybe you have too many old rags or toothbrushes or far more liquids or sprays than you actually need. Like I've shared so many times in this video, keep what you need and you use, but get rid of the rest. All right, well, we made it to the end of part 1. Can you believe that there's another 100 ideas for things to declutter that we have left to talk about? We haven't even touched on your closet, pets, your office, and so many other areas yet. So I'm excited to dive into all of those topics with you in the next video. But before we wrap up today, I did just want to make you aware of a couple of resources I've put together for you. First off, if you're coming away from this video thinking that's great, but how on earth am I supposed to remember all of those ideas? I've put together a free PDF checklist for you that walks through every single one of the 200 ideas that I'm sharing in these videos. I'll leave that linked up in the description box below as well as in the comments, so definitely be sure to check that out. And then second, if you're in the process of decluttering your home right now, I definitely recommend checking out my book, The Simple Guide to Decluttering Your Home. It will help you to learn some of the top decluttering mistakes to avoid, how to decide what to keep versus what to get rid of, as well as gives you some of my best tips on how to accelerate your decluttering journey so you can transform your space from chaos to calm. And again, I'll have the ebook linked up for you in the description box below. All right, well, that is everything I have for you for today's video. I know this was a longer one and the next one probably will be as well, but I hope you enjoyed it and that it gave you some valuable inspiration that you can use to declutter your life and simplify your home. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you're here for the first time and you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button below for more simple and intentional living content coming at you twice a week. Finally, be sure to follow me on Instagram. I am at ashlynne.eaton on there. But that's everything for today's video. Stay tuned for part 2 where we'll be discussing the other 100 ideas for things you can declutter. I hope you guys enjoyed this one though. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.